the Solar Man Show. I'm Professor Joe Hui, and I got all my degrees from MIT, and also run a company called the Monarch Power Com. Welcome to the show. This is the first time we're showing the Solar Man Show. I'm going to teach you a lot of things, but I'm going to tell you some bad news first. And there's so many bad news on TV and on newspaper these days. And the first bad news, of course, you all know, is that last week, Superstorm Irma just landed in Florida, and it doused the whole state. And right now, 90% of the homes on Key West are damaged. Bad news. So, why are so many bad things happening? We got Harvey only like 2 weeks ago, and it was so bad. Houston is totally flooded and moved east, and it knocked out all the oil refineries, everything on the path. And now we have Irma. Unfortunately, we were prepared. So people evacuated, and it was okay. So most of you are safe and sound, except that your homes are flooded, all underwater now. And it's going to take a long time to recover. So what are you going to do about it? Why are we facing so many natural disasters? So I'm going to tell you, first of all, about Solar Man. I am Solar Man, and this is Solar Man that is standing on his Solar Man car. And I drive around this thing in town a lot. And this is a Tesla Roadster. Now, some of you may know that it's an electric car. And the electric car basically runs on batteries. But I don't like to charge my car using coal-fired electricity. So I figure the way to save planet Earth is to charge my electric car with solar power, clean, free solar energy. And so what you see on the back of the Roadster here is a solar power collector. If you put on solar panels, it would collect solar rays, and that energy would be converted into electricity, and the electricity would be used to charge my electric car. And it can go on that solar power, clean solar power, and save planet Earth. Solar Man want to save the planet. Solar Man want to save the world. And Solar Man want to provide free solar energy that is of the people, for the people, and by the people. All right? So let's look at now what we are going to talk about, which is the first big problem that we're facing now is that the planet is really in trouble. Why is it in trouble? Well, we burn so much coal, and there's so much carbon dioxide, we almost increase the level of carbon dioxide by 40% since the Industrial Revolution. Carbon dioxide basically traps heat. And the atmosphere has so much carbon dioxide that you can see the temperature of the atmosphere rising up tremendously. So what I'm going to show you is this multiple questions that we have, which is Hurricane Harvey and Irma. And what you want to know is that why are these storms so destructive? Why do they douse us with so much water that our homes are flooded? And second, we also want to know, is global warming for real? Is it just fake science? Are people denying that the Earth is warming up? And the other thing that we want to know about is, now that if you believe the Earth is warming, what must we do to save the planet? That's something that we need to focus on today. So let's just look a little bit on the issue of Harvey and Irma. Now, you can see basically that, now this is a picture of a hurricane that is over the Caribbean. And you would find that it is so big. It almost covers the 1/3 of the eastern United States from that point of view. And this is a huge storm. And this is seen from a satellite. So there's something very interesting there in this picture here. One is the center of the hurricane is an eye. Now, that eye is where most of the energy and the power of that wind is concentrated. So around the eye, the wind would swirl round and around. And basically, you will find that there's an eye wall. There's a wall, and I'm going to show you on this picture here. So this is a hurricane, and this is the eye of the hurricane. All right? And inside the eye of the hurricane is very strange. You can see the sky, and there's no wind. And around the hurricane, and the wind force is flowing in a counterclockwise inward. And you can see basically this wind here is flowing in a counterclockwise. Now, wind actually goes from outside to inside the hurricane. Now, you may ask, what caused the wind force to be so strong? And you have to understand something about science, which I, as solar man, I'm going to teach you a lot about science. Now, where does the power of the hurricane come from? It comes from the sun. I'm solar man, so the power of the hurricane all comes from the sun. How does it work? Now, we burn so much carbon dioxide, and the sunshine coming down on Earth is being trapped by all that carbon dioxide, then it heats up the Earth. Now, worse than that, actually much more heat is trapped in the ocean. You know, almost 90% of the heat that has caused global warming actually is absorbed by the ocean, and only about 10% or something like that remains in the atmosphere that causes the temperature to rise up. Now, that is bad news, because all that heat that is in the ocean is going to evaporate. And we know that evaporating water, which we know is H2O, water, water is much lighter than air. Actually, water vapor has half the density of air. So water is going to rise up. Now, when things rises up, something has to come in to fill that space, and that's air. So what you have is that around the eye, the air is coming in, being attracted by the low pressure at the center of the eyes, and coming in like that. Now, it doesn't go directly from the outside into the eye, but it actually swirls around it. The reason for that is because the Earth is rotating. Now, let's have a look at the hurricane again. All right, what you see in the hurricane here, you have, as I said, the wind blows in a counterclockwise direction from outside to inside, towards the eye. Now, how does a hurricane move? And as you have seen maybe on satellite, the hurricane moves from the eastern Pacific Ocean over to the Caribbean, over to Cuba, and then on to Florida. So it's going from what? From east to west. Now, is it really the hurricane that's moving? No, it's actually the move that's moving underneath the hurricane. So what you see is basically the hurricane swirling around. The Earth, by its rotation, is rotating eastward, so it seems like the hurricane is moving west. That's how it works, all right? Now, another thing that makes the hurricane interesting is that the wind actually is also moving from east to west. Not just the hurricane itself, but wind is moving from east to west because the Earth is moving underneath it. So, and it's attracted also underneath by the low pressure at the eye, and therefore it would appear to be like a flushing toilet for which wind is rushing from the outside to the inside in an anti-clockwise direction. All right? So that's how the physics of that works. Now, whenever a hurricane passes over a hot ocean, water vapor would rises up and then would rise up and draws in the air, and that's make the hurricane so powerful because of that solar energy. The solar energy of rise that create the evaporation of ocean water that rises up, draws in the air, and then makes it very, very powerful. So you now that have an understanding of hurricane, and so let's ask the second question that we have been talking about. Is global warming for real? Yes, it is real. And it's going to get worse. But what can we do about it? It's too late for us to stop burning coal. And it's too late for us to stop driving cars that pump a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So what we need to see is basically we need technology. We need to invent a whole bunch of new technology so that there would be a lot less carbon dioxide being pumped into the atmosphere. Also, we need to create technology that makes us feel comfortable in the presence of global warming. The Earth is getting hotter. So what's the solution for global warming? Well, it's personal chilling. You can cool yourself. And I'm going to talk about, in my Solar Man show, a lot of the inventions that is going to help you live a comfortable life. All right, so stay on and be sure to tune in every week to see my invention. You'll be fascinated because these inventions are so useful, and it's going to help a lot of people, not just you and me, but also help people in India, in China, in Africa, where people can't really afford all these luxury of air conditioning, cars, and things that help us live a comfortable life. So the Solar Man motto, as I'm going to show you, is live comfortable but sustainable. We owe it to ourselves so that we can enjoy all the comforts of air conditioning, heating, water, food, and the internet, and cool transportation. But we have to be responsible so that we don't foul up the planet in doing that. All right, so the next part, I'm going to talk about the other two kinds of trouble that we're getting into. And what we are going to do is Solar Man is going to save not just the planet, but also save the Earth, save the world, as well as save yourself. All right? What kind of trouble are we getting into? Not only the planet is warming up, the world is getting into a lot of conflicts. And a lot of you experience firsthand the problem of racism. What is racism? Racism is just basically one people group think that they're better than the other people group. And so, you think you're smarter, you are more pretty, you're stronger, you can play basketball better than other kind of people. That's a form of racism because you are thinking that my race is better than the other race because we can play basketball better, I can do rap better, and so on, right? So as Chinese myself, I think that, we are nerds, we study better, and that become a form of racism too, because other people would stereotype a Chinese person like myself as being, super achieving and, that sort of thing, which is, to me, sometimes I don't like that. I don't like that stereotyping. And so, but the world is actually, getting people who think that racism is good. For example, we have this logo which is Make America Great Again, which is basically thinking that America as a nation is better than any other nations. All right? So, and also, nationalism is rising all over the world, not only in the United States, but also in China and also in India. And besides China, India, and the United States, the three biggest countries in the world, you also have in Africa and also in the Middle East the rise of Islamic nationalism. Basically, they want Islam to become the Islamic state that basically govern all your livelihood through religion. Now, just like racism is bad, sometimes one religion think that they are better than the other kind of religion. I think that's also very bad. That's a race that causes a lot of conflict all over the world. So I think, I don't want to scare you, but I think all these talk about wars in the Middle East, and now that we have North Korea threatening to throw atomic bombs at the United States, and war may break out in the Korean Peninsula, I think that's pretty bad. So what are you going to do about it? Fortunately, in the United States, we live pretty far away, even though the Korean dictator may throw a hydrogen bomb at us through a missile. I think we're still protected because we're so far away. But you got to prepare. Nations are going to rise up against other nations. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about racism? What are you going to do about nationalism that cause all these major conflict in the world? What do you do about the fact that people are fighting over resources, fighting over oil, fighting over water, even recently fighting over clean air because Africa is saying, well, you Western countries are burning so much coal and generating so much carbon dioxide, and we suffer from the effect of global warming. Africa is hot. So what are we going to do about it? All right, so that's the second major source of conflict. The first one being the planet is being destroyed because of global warming. And the second, the nations are fighting against each other because of racism and also because of nationalism and because of religious intolerance. So what are we going to do about it? Now, there's another problem that we are going to face next is that we are, the next slide, which is we have the problem for our young people these days. And this problem comes from the fact that a lot of us, after we finish school, either high school or college, come out and can't find a job. There are no more jobs because a lot of the manufacturing jobs has gone over to China or other places like India. The software jobs has gone over to India. So we, as Americans, particularly you as young people, find it very difficult to find a purpose in your life because you go out there and you don't see any jobs. Now, there are three trends that take away your jobs. The first trend, of course, is a lot of jobs disappear to China and you don't have a job. Or to Mexico, who would be taking away your job for manufacturing. Now, there's another trend coming up, and robots are getting very, robots are everywhere. So what are you going to do about it? So what are we going to do about it is, let me just tell you this, right? And the robots is going to replace people. For example, in Amazon, they're replacing people who are handling all the shipping of Amazon products that you buy by robots. So, of course, that's not bad, necessarily bad, because you don't want to hurt your back putting a heavy package on the shelf at an Amazon store and then ship it out. Well, in the future, Amazon is going to use drones Right now, they're using a lot of Amazon trucks to deliver goods, and in the future, they will use drones to drop literally your package on your front lawn. So a lot of the things that we used to do ourselves, that get ourselves paid for, is disappearing. You know, there are no more jobs for manual labor because they're all replaced by robots. Now, worse news is coming. You know, artificial intelligence. And some of you may have heard that artificial intelligence may start the Third World War. Well, that's a little bit scary, and some of you may have heard about Skynet, that Skynet would basically plan a nuclear war on people like us. Well, I don't think it's that bad yet, because we can really program Skynet to be obedient to us, all right? But there's no guarantee that they don't revolt against us like Skynet did. But the immediate threat that you face now is going to be that artificial intelligence can actually outperform us in providing services. For example, you can keep track of all your bank accounts, keep track of all your credit cards, and then maybe making spending decisions for you. Or in the future, if you want to go see a doctor because you got stomach ache, now artificial intelligence can have a huge database that has all the record about your age and people of the same age, whether you have what sort of ailment, and they would do a very quick diagnosis to find out what the problem is and give you a treatment. So with all these big data, which you have a lot of data, artificial intelligence can learn from all that big data and come back to give you much better advice, medical advice, legal advice, or other kinds of or financial advice. And so your job in the future, providing legal service, medical service, or financial services, is going to be gone. I mean, the machine can do a better job than you. So what are you going to do about it? Bad news, right? So I am going to tell you what you would need to know. So Solar Man come to the rescue. So Solar Man come to the rescue because we are in trouble. We are in trouble because the planet is heating up. We are in trouble because people rise against other people because of racism, because of nationalism, and also because of religious intolerance. So we must save planet Earth, and we must prepare for major wars, and also we must create jobs for ourselves. So what are we going to do about it? Now, let's see the solution. Solar Man come to the rescue. So how are we going to live our life? I'm going to tell you how you should live your life. All right, so what we have here is some solution to the problem of rescuing the planet, rescuing the world, and rescuing you yourself. We got to use a lot more renewable energy. Now, it doesn't mean that we go cold turkey with gasolines and coal and that sort of thing. We gradually replace coal with natural gas, which is cleaner and cheaper than coal or cheaper than gasoline. So we got to have a plan, basically replacing dirty form of energy with cleaner form of energy, and eventually with the totally renewable form of energy, which is wind, solar, and hydro power. So these are the few things that we need to start doing. Now, there's this new idea that I want to talk about, which is portable and personal energy. And I'm going to explain a little bit more. And not only in the generation of energy, but also in the use of energy. Energy is not something that you think about every day. But what you think about are things like water, air conditioning, food, education or networking, and also transportation, how you go from places to places. These are what we do every day. Energy is just the enabler, help us to get water, get air conditioning, get heating, get food, help us to communicate, and also help us to move from places to places. All right, so we need a new paradigm of renewable energy, which is I call personal energy. Now, what's the difference between the energy that we use today versus the energy that I'm proposing, which is a portable personal energy? Now, energy right now is generated by the sun. All right, so here is a copy of my book, which is called What's the Matter with Energy? All right, and what's the matter with energy? Well, the matter is, it's not that we don't have energy. Energy is almost everywhere. The sun shining on us is energy. You know, all the heat in Arizona, the heat energy is heat energy, all right? So we have a lot of energy in our gasoline, and we have a lot of energy that is in, our electricity socket. You can pull the energy out by plugging your computer into that energy supply. The problem with energy is that it's not personal, all right? You can't have a personal air conditioner. Why can't I put on a piece of cloth that actually chills me? That's personal. But right now, we have to go inside a big building with a huge central air conditioning system, and so that we can get cool. That's very expensive. That's also, harms the earth, because guess what? Not only that the burning of fossil fuel to create that energy to do your cooling, that uses a lot of coal, generate a lot of carbon dioxide, and heats up the earth. And guess what? That's like a vicious cycle, right? What happened is, I want it to be cool, I burn more coal, and the coal will make the earth even hotter. And then I have to turn on my air conditioning even stronger, and so on. So, guess what? Africa said that, well, not only you in the United States or in Europe have been burning so much coal over the past 200 years, you have been using air conditioner that use refrigerant that is 1,000 times worse than carbon dioxide. And so Africa would say, hey, I'd rather die in the heat than being drowned in the rising water of global warming. So they proposed to ban refrigerants. So without refrigerant, how are we going to get chill? You can't. So solar men come to the rescue, because I'm going to invent a different kind of air conditioning system that doesn't use refrigerant. And it's personal, which means that you can take it with yourself, and it can be powered by solar energy, and also can be powered by your cigarette lighter in the car, the 12-volt batteries, and you can carry it to the beach in your car and have fun with it. How cool is that? It's really cool. So we're going to talk about that. So stay tuned to see my personal chilling, which is the answer to global warming. That is a very important product that I think is going to save the world. It's going to save the world from global warming. It's going to save you from the extreme heat, particularly here in Phoenix. It's so hot. You can't believe it. All right? So personal cooling is going to be very important. So personal energy, what does it mean? You don't rely on the big power companies to give you electricity. You don't rely on big oil to give you gasoline to drive around. You take the energy here and now and close to yourself. That energy is personal. And the use of energy, that energy is also personal. Just right next to you, you have your air conditioning, you have your water purifying, or you can suck moisture from the atmosphere and give you drinking water just here and now, instead of you have to go to a vending machine to get a cold Coca-Cola. You can literally suck the moisture from the air and can chill that water to give you a cup of clean drinking water just here. And you can use solar energy and to power your electric car like I do. I think we don't necessarily have to drive big Tesla Roadster. We can always drive around in an electric bicycle. That would be cool. That would save the planet, right? All right, so personal energy is different from centralized generation of energy by big power company. And it's different from the trying to get transportation by means of big oil, like ExxonMobil. You have to fight wars in places so that you can get to the oil, and then you have to refine the oil and then ship it all over the world. And you have to pay a lot of money to drive your car. That destroys the earth. We should stay away from that. So let me just go to tell you a little bit more about myself. All right? And why I would be able to help you to realize this notion of personal energy and changing your lifestyle. Now, I grew up in Hong Kong. I like Bruce Lee, if some of you may know. I actually, think that he's my hero. He was born in the United States, Bruce Lee, was a movie star in Hong Kong, and then went back to the United States, and then he did some Kung Fu movie that most of you have seen. Really cool. And I follow the same path, which is I am American. I came from Hong Kong. I grew up in Hong Kong. And I was very good in science and in math. And, I was able to do very well in school. And I go to school. I didn't like school that much, to be honest with you. I mean, they try to cram information into your head. And usually, I like to ask the question of why. Why 1 + 1 is equal to 2? Why 1 + 1 is not equal to 3? Okay, that doesn't help me in exams because I'm asking a question of why rather than how, and what is 1 + 1 equal to 2. I say, and at most school will teach you how 1 + 1 you can find out that it's equal to 2. But I would ask very basic question of why 1 + 1 is equal to 2 and not equal to 3. So I learned everything by myself. And I strongly encourage you, in order for you to really become smart, don't just Google it, okay? You find the answer by Googling things, but you're much better off by using your imagination to find out what's really interesting. And not only that, just like Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. All right, so let me just show you what I have done as Solar Man. I have my Solar Man cape, which basically is an Arizona flag. I literally can fly with it. Well, just kidding. And I have my flag. All right, and this is my Solar Man hat. Well, I use my Solar Man hat as well as my Solar Man glass to protect myself from the strong Arizonan sun. And those of you who live in Arizona know it's so hot and so bright here that if you don't put on glasses, you go blind. If you don't put on a hat, you get skin cancer. So this is the way I protect myself from the very strong sun in Arizona. And of course, this flag here is just to attract people's attention when I'm driving around in my Solar Man car. I usually don't put on this flag myself, but this is very interesting, I think. So after I finished my high school in Hong Kong, I was very good, and I came to the United States. I went to MIT, and I got all my degrees, my bachelor, my master, and my PhD, all 3 of them in 6 years. It broke the record over there. And so afterwards, I focused on inventing things. At that time, I invented a lot of stuff like CDMA and GSM. I have patents on these things that basically allow you to make phone calls, cell phones. And I did my PhD on that subject, which is wireless communication. And later I find that, we are oversatisfied with everything digital, whether it's digital computer or digital communication. So I asked myself the very basic question: what is the most urgent problem that the world faces now? And I think the most urgent problem that the world faces now is energy and environment and education. I call it 3 E's. Let me just repeat again. Energy is what makes the world goes around, right? And we need a lot of energy, and in a sense, we have too much energy because the earth is getting so hot, but we don't have the right kind of energy, like motion energy to go places. So I thought that energy is one of the most important problems that the world now faces. And the second thing is environment. Of course, environment is messed up because we have been irresponsible, burning a lot of coal and, messing up the environment, making our water and our air so dirty that we can't even breathe it. That's pretty bad. So not only the environment in terms of, we have messed up our ocean and messed up our atmosphere and messed up everything, but the environment, I want to make it habitable. Habitable means that we can live comfortably in that environment. So I want to focus on, providing air conditioning. How do you cool in a globally warming planet? Well, you do personal chilling, as I said. So I focus on things like doing air conditioning. I focus on things like how do you convert solar energy into electricity. Now, solar panel can do that, which is I'm going to talk about next time, about my SolarMan car being driven by solar energy through solar panels. I also look at heat engines. We have a lot of heat, global warming. So the Earth is getting hotter. And heat is the predominant form of energy, whether it's provided by the sun or it's provided by burning fuel, which is a very intense form of heat energy, as you know. And so I look at it and say, hey, how can we convert that heat energy efficiently into motion energy? So I practically reinvented the jet engine, the gas turbine. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, about a new kind of jet engine or gas turbine that you can do. And you can literally do it at home if you want to. I would talk also about wind turbines, right? Turbine are things that turns around. A gas turbine turns around, and also a wind turbine turns around. And I think wind energy is really important. And so I think wind turbine, I'm going to talk about wind turbine. And I'm also going to talk about, besides wind turbine, I'm going to talk about electricity generator. Now, electricity generator was invented by Michael Faraday around the 1820, and then later on around the 1890 was the AC generator was invented by Nikola Tesla. Now, most of you know these two people. They're famous people. Michael Faraday was the father of electricity and a lot of notions about batteries and chemicals and were due to him. And later on, Nikola Tesla invented the electricity generator that generates AC, that totally changed the way we live because of electricity generation. So I look at both Michael Faraday and Nikola Tesla, and guess what? Me being solar man and being a rebel didn't like the way they do electricity generation. So when I was trying to do my personal electricity generation, I reinvented the electricity generator that I call the polygon electric generator. In short, it's called PEG. I'm going to talk about that in the show. I'm going to demonstrate it here. So stay tuned, because these things are very interesting, and I believe that if I can't explain it clearly to you, then I really don't fully understand how this invention works. Okay, so I want you to really have a lot of curiosity in science, also in technology. But more important, you need to be focused on people. People are dying because of flooding. People are dying because of the lack of air conditioning. Just this morning, 2 elderly people died in Florida because the nursing home didn't have air conditioning. It's just getting too hot. So people die because they don't have water, they don't have air conditioning, and they don't have electricity. They don't have refrigeration to cool the food to prevent it from spoiling. People die because they can't be transported in time to the hospital, the lack of transportation. People die because you can't call 911, the lack of communication. So all these things, you got to have a burning desire to solve people's problem. And the way to solve it is to think, to invent things that is personal, things that are efficient, and things that are cool, all right? Because people use these things because it's really cool, because it's really useful. So I'm going to talk about this stuff, all parts of it, and what I'm going to do today is really to have you think about that you need to learn more science. And one of the best ways to learn science, I think, is by reading my book called What's the Matter with Energy? I wrote this book for you because I think science has been scaring you off, because you think that science requires a lot of difficult mathematics like calculus, trigonometry. Now, eventually, you need to learn that. But I think science is easier than that, easier than algebra, easier than trigonometry and calculus. What you need to know first is the scientist and the inventor behind these things. For example, I talked about Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla was in school, and the professor challenged him to invent an electric motor that doesn't sparks, because the old electric motor all stinks and create electric sparks. So he wanted to do that, and his professor thought that it can't be done, but he did it finally. So read this book because it talks about the scientist and the inventor, and then each chapter of each topic in a chapter of the book will then talk about how you can understand a simple equation. Now, if I talk about equation, and everybody will say every equation you put in your book will reduce the sales by half. I don't believe that, because I think it's important for you to really precisely understand the relationship between quantities of nature. For example, if I have a mass and I want to know how heavy it is, I need to characterize in terms of this bulk weighs half a kilogram. So that precise notion of weight that quantify the amount of mass that I have on my hand is something that you need to know very clearly and in relation to other things. Okay, like if I have to carry this book and I need to carry in the car, how much energy does it use up to carry a whole box of books in my car? So, and also I give you a lot of pictures, pretty pictures. For example, on motion, I talk about all these planets doing motion around the sun, and I explain to you how motion is a form of energy, and motion can be facilitated by electricity, and motion can be facilitated by other means such as you use applying a force to push a car and so on. So the important thing I again want to emphasize is that we need to focus on our purpose in our life. My purpose is to let everyone on this planet, not only just the rich Americans, but also the poor Africans, live a comfortable and sustainable life. We are responsible for the planet Earth. We can live comfortably without destroying the Earth. And the only way to do it is through the use of personal energy. And that's the main theme today that I want to talk about, is this whole notion of making energy personal to you. Personal. Making it cool, making it here, making it now, and making it to work for your comfort. Thank you. And I guess you can get a copy of a book by going to either the bookstore, which is solarmanstore.com, solarmanstore.com. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is AC Solarman, AC as in Arizona, Solarman on my Facebook page. You can see my video on this on my Solarman Facebook page. And tune in also next week. I'm going to tell you about my Solarman car. It's really cool. It's really, I drive around my Solarman car, and all the young people will just give me a thumbs up when I'm driving. They know what I'm trying to tell them. Basically, that you can be cool, and at the same time, you can save the planet. All right, so stay tuned. Next week, we'll talk about the Solarman car.